my Moon Knight.
So now that Marvel's bringing in Jon Bernthal's Punisher, aka Frank Castle, into Tom Holland's next Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man Brand New Day, it's pretty clear they're setting up something big. And not just any team, but a crew of antiheroes that's about to seriously shake things up in the MCU. But here's the thing, there are still some new faces we haven't talked about yet. So who exactly are these new players, and why are they such a big deal? That's exactly what we're getting into in today's video. We're breaking down 10 of Marvel's top-tier antiheroes who are more than ready to change the game. Let's kick things off with number 10, Maverick. Maverick, also known as David North or Christoph Nord, is a lesser-known but seriously intriguing Marvel character. First appearing in X-Men number 5, he was created by John Byrne and Jim Lee. Once a part of Team X with none other than Wolverine and Sabretooth, Maverick has walked a morally gray path throughout his comic book journey. He's teamed up with Wolverine quite a bit, but he's not exactly loyal to the cause. He goes wherever the money and freedom lead him, making him the perfect wild card. Sometimes he's fighting for his fellow mutants, and other times he's running brutal operations, like a space prison loaded with beasts captives. That kind of unpredictability makes him stand out. If he owns up to his past and sticks by the X-Men, he could be a powerhouse ally. But if he turns his back on Wolverine, then Marvel could have a memorable villain on their hands. What's tricky is that Maverick often floats between the two, so unless he picks a lane, he might just stay a background figure. With the MCU slowly opening the door to mutants, especially with upcoming movies like Avengers Doomsday hinting at their arrival, it wouldn't be too far-fetched to imagine Maverick popping up. Considering how grounded and intense characters like Daredevil, Moon Knight, and Punisher have been embraced recently, Maverick could fit right in with fans craving more street-level, gritty heroes. And let's not forget that Daniel Henney already played Agent Zero in X-Men Origins Wolverine, which gives Marvel some casting options if they want to reintroduce him. Number 9. Blade. Now, Blade is a name that a lot of Marvel fans already know and love. Originally introduced in the Tomb of Dracula number 10 back in 1973, Blade's real name, Eric Brooks, is half human, half vampire, and all vengeance. He doesn't follow the typical hero rules. He's a vampire hunter who uses whatever means necessary to get the job done, even if that means getting his hands a little dirty. That makes him the perfect anti-hero. We've been hearing about his big MCU debut for a while now, with Mahershala Ali attached to play him. The project has hit a bunch of roadblocks, from director changes to casting shakeups, and even got pulled from Marvel's release schedule in October 2024. But despite all that, there's still hope. According to David Goyer, who wrote the Wesley Snipes Blade trilogy, Marvel told him they were in a good place with the new version. So while it's been quiet, things may still be moving forward behind the scenes. When Blade finally arrives, he could really change the game. He brings a darker tone and more edge, and teaming him up with other morally complex characters would create some pretty wild storylines. Given how the MCU is already introducing more supernatural elements, Blade feels like a natural fit. Number 8. Moon Knight. Moon Knight isn't just a guy in a cool white costume, he's one of Marvel's most layered characters. Mark Spector, a former mercenary turned mystical warrior, struggles with dissociative identity disorder. His personalities, Mark, Stephen Grant, and Jake Lockley, all bring different perspectives to the table, and it's this internal conflict that makes him fascinating. Thanks to Disney Plus and Oscar Isaac's phenomenal performance, Moon Knight has already made a splash in the MCU. His brutal justice, unpredictable nature, and deep psychological struggles make him an ideal anti-hero. Whether he's fighting for redemption or giving in to his darker impulses, Moon Knight is never boring. And with Khonshu in the mix, you never know which side of him is really in control. The show dug into heavy themes like childhood trauma, mental health, and inner strength, and the character's unique fighting style and mystical abilities only made him more compelling. Fans are definitely hoping to see more of him soon. Number 7. Magik. Magik, or Ilyana Rasputina, is Colossus's younger sister, but she's carved out her own dark, twisted path. After being kidnapped and trapped in the demonic realm of Limbo, she not only survived, she ruled the place. That experience left her with mastery over black magic and the ability to teleport using stepping discs that tap into Limbo's energy. She walks a fine line between hero and villain. Her decisions are often brutal, and her past leaves her emotionally scarred, but she's also proven herself as a loyal and powerful ally. Magik has already shown up on screen in the New Mutants movie, played by Anya Taylor-Joy, and in 2024, Marvel launched a new comic series focused entirely on her. Although Magik was played by Anya Taylor-Joy as Illyana Rasputina in the 2020 film The New Mutants, it's still unclear which universe that movie actually belongs to. But if Marvel does decide to pull more characters from that film into the MCU, Magik would be an easy standout. Her teleportation skills and dark magic would vibe perfectly with Blade, Moon Knight, and any other anti-hero squad Marvel might be building. If you've got any theories on how Marvel could bring in the New Mutants, let me know in the comments below. Now moving on. Number 6. Ghost Rider. It's hard to talk about Marvel anti-heroes without mentioning Ghost Rider. There's been more than one version. Johnny Blaze, Danny Ketch, and Robbie Reyes among them, but they all share one thing in common. They're driven by vengeance and tied to hellish powers. Johnny Blaze was the original supernatural Ghost Rider, making a deal with a demon to save his foster father's life. He ended up bonded with the spirit of vengeance and transformed into a flaming skull on a fiery motorcycle whenever evil was near. Over time, Blaze became a mainstay in the Marvel Universe and later passed the torch to Danny Ketch, who had a similar tragic backstory. Robbie Reyes, the more recent incarnation, drives a muscle car instead of a bike and brings his own style to the Ghost Rider legend. He's already appeared in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so there's an MCU link already in place. And with Marvel exploring more horror and supernatural themes, Ghost Rider feels like a perfect character to bring back in a big way. Whether it's Johnny Blaze or Robbie Reyes, Ghost Rider's story is all about redemption, pain, and unleashing hell on those who deserve it, classic anti-hero material. His presence would easily raise the stakes in any Marvel storyline. Number 5. Damon Hellstrom. Damon Hellstrom, also known as the Son of Satan, might just be one of Marvel's most intense and dark anti-heroes. His roots go back to the early 70s, during the rise in popularity of supernatural characters like Ghost Rider and Dracula. Initially, Stan Lee wanted to make a series about Satan himself, but editor Roy Thomas nudged the idea towards something a little less controversial, focusing instead on Satan's son. So, Damon Hellstrom was born, first appearing in Ghost Rider Volume 2, Number 1 and 2 in 1973, before spinning off into his own series, Son of Satan. Damon's storylines have always pushed boundaries. His comics didn't shy away from satanic and occult imagery, which stirred up controversy but also drew plenty of attention. Damon has a trident, a pentagram branded on his chest, and the kind of internal torment that puts most Marvel characters to shame. He's constantly caught between the human world and the demonic fighting evil with powers that most heroes would fear to even touch. One of the darker comic arcs involving Damon explored how his demonic heritage caused emotional and psychological instability, leading him to question if he's becoming the very thing he fights against. It's this inner turmoil that makes him such a compelling anti-hero. He's a good guy, but he has to use hellish power to do the job. If Marvel Studios wants to keep exploring supernatural themes in future shows and films, especially after Werewolf by Night and the darker tone of Moon Knight, Damon Hellstrom could be a great fit. He could appear in a Midnight Suns lineup, or maybe even cross paths with Blade or Ghost Rider. In fact, he was briefly brought into live action with Hulu's Hellstrom series, but that show flew under the radar. The MCU could do a lot more with a character like him. Imagine a show that digs into demonic legacies, mental health, and redemption, all in a gothic horror setting. Number 4. Elsa Bloodstone. Elsa Bloodstone is another Monster Hunter anti-hero with deep roots in Marvel's supernatural corners. She first showed up in Bloodstone Number 1 in 2001, created by Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning. She's the daughter of Ulysses Bloodstone, who is already an established monster hunting legend in the comics. Elsa carries on that legacy, but she does it her own way, often with sarcasm, attitude, and a no-nonsense approach to slaying monsters. She's been a part of teams like Next Wave, the Fearless Defenders, and the Midnight Suns. She's faced off against Lovecraftian beasts, giant insects, and even Marvel's version of zombie hordes. Elsa doesn't fit into the classic hero mold. She's more of a get-the-job-done-no-matter-what type. Her sense of humor is dark, her weapons are brutal, and her heart is kind of, well, buried under a pile of dead monsters. In the comics, she's had moments where her methods are questionably brutal, like during Next Wave, where she casually decapitates enemies or uses extreme measures to take down supernatural threats. It's her fierce independence and willingness to go further than most heroes that place her firmly in anti-hero territory. Elsa made her MCU debut in the Werewolf by Night special, played by Laura Donnelly. That short film opened the door to Marvel's monster hunting world, and Elsa stood out immediately. She's got charisma, grit, and a rich backstory just waiting to be explored. Marvel could easily expand on her role in upcoming supernatural crossover events, or give her a series that dives deeper into the legacy of the Bloodstone family. Number 3. Wanda Maximoff. Few characters in the MCU have had a journey as emotionally devastating and morally complex as Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch. She started out as a villain, fighting against the Avengers in Age of Ultron before switching sides. But Wanda's life has been shaped by immense trauma. She lost her parents to a bombing, her twin brother Pietro during a battle, and the love of her life, Vision, not once, but twice. In the comics, Wanda has had a long and complicated legacy. One of her darkest arcs came during the House of M storyline, where she altered reality itself, wiping out most of the mutant population with the iconic words, "No more mutants." That moment cemented her status as both one of the most powerful and most dangerous figures in the Marvel Universe. In the MCU, Wanda's transformation in WandaVision and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness showed how grief can twist even the noblest intentions. Her actions in Westview imprisoning a whole town in her fantasy and her later pursuit of her children across the multiverse blurred the line between hero and villain, but her pain and desire for connection made her incredibly relatable. Wanda's story isn't over. Even though she made a sacrifice in Multiverse of Madness, her return feels inevitable. And when she does come back, Marvel has a chance to show her path to redemption, or perhaps take her even deeper into anti-hero territory. Either way, her arc is one of the most layered in the MCU. Number 2. Morbius. Dr. Michael Morbius, also known as the Living Vampire, is another Marvel character who straddles the line between hero and monster. Created in 1971, he first appeared in The Amazing Spider-Man number 101. He started off as a tragic villain, a brilliant scientist who tried to cure his rare blood disease, only to turn himself into a vampire-like creature. Unlike traditional vampires, Morbius is a result of science, not the supernatural, but he shares many of the same traits: thirst for blood, enhanced strength, and flight. In the comics, Morbius often finds himself battling his own nature. During the Midnight Suns era in the 1990s, he joined forces with other supernatural anti-heroes to fight evil, even as he continued to struggle with his violent urges. One memorable storyline showed him resisting the temptation to feed on innocent people while fighting a group of vampire hunters, proving he still had a conscience even if it was buried deep. Sony's Morbius movie gave us a taste of this character, though the reception was mixed, to say the least. But if Marvel Studios wanted to bring Morbius into the fold properly, he could serve as a tragic anti-hero who's constantly at war with himself. His storylines could easily mesh with characters like Blade or Moon Knight, especially if Marvel builds a darker, more horror-infused branch of the MCU. Number 1. Emma Frost. Emma Frost has one of the most fascinating evolutions in Marvel Comics. She started out as a full-on villain, a member of the Hellfire Club, and a ruthless telepath who was willing to kill to get what she wanted. She ran her own school for gifted youngsters, often clashing with the X-Men and attempting to steal their students. In one early appearance, she even killed her own henchmen just to make a point. But despite her cold demeanor, Emma genuinely cared about her students. That side of her eventually grew stronger, and over time she shifted from villain to reluctant hero. Her complex relationship with Cyclops helped deepen her connection to the X-Men. By the time the mutant nation of Krakoa was established, Emma had fully stepped into a leadership role. She's still morally gray, often doing things the X-Men wouldn't approve of, but her loyalty to mutant kind is unshakable. Her cold logic, cutting sarcasm, and immense psychic power make her one of the most compelling anti-heroes in Marvel lore. In the upcoming MCU mutant storylines, Emma Frost could easily play a pivotal role. Imagine her as the X-Men's strategic advisor, someone who's always a few steps ahead and isn't afraid to get her hands dirty if it means protecting her people. She's the kind of character who could bring sophistication, edge, and a whole lot of drama to Marvel's future. So there you have it. Damon Hellstrom, Elsa Bloodstone, Wanda Maximoff, Morbius, and Emma Frost. Each one brings something unique to the anti-hero table, and with the MCU expanding into darker and more complex territories, it's the perfect time to explore their stories in full. Whether they're battling inner demons or real ones, these characters are ready to shake up the universe in a big way. And with characters like Emma Frost showing just how much complexity and redemption arcs can evolve over time, it's clear the MCU has plenty of room for more morally gray heroes. But while we've gone over a bunch of standout anti-heroes so far, there's one more bonus character we couldn't leave out, especially because he brings something a little different to the table. So, if you don't mind, let's add one more name to the list: Nomad. Now, the name Nomad has been used by a few characters in Marvel history, but one of the most compelling versions came from Jack Monroe. His journey is tied deeply to the legacy of Captain America. In fact, his whole story starts during the 1950s when Marvel briefly rebooted Cap as a Cold War commie smasher, complete with a new Bucky by his side. That Bucky? Jack Monroe. Of course, this version didn't last, and when the original Steve Rogers returned in the Silver Age, Marvel retconned the history to explain that Rogers and the original Bucky had been frozen in time before the war ended. So to keep things in line, it was revealed that Monroe and his partner William Burnside had stepped in to fill their shoes, only to be later placed in suspended animation themselves. When they eventually woke up, things didn't go well. Burnside lost his grip on reality, but Monroe tried to redeem himself. He took on the mantle of Nomad, a fitting name since he drifted through his own path, not quite fitting in anywhere, and definitely a far cry from the polished image of Captain America. Monroe was rougher, more conflicted, and definitely leaned into the anti-hero mold. Sadly, his story ended in tragedy when he was killed by none other than James Buchanan Barnes, the original Bucky, who at the time was under Hydra's control as the Winter Soldier. It's a gritty legacy, but one that feels oddly relevant for the MCU right now. With themes of identity, redemption, and legacy playing such a big part in recent Marvel phases, reviving Nomad even as a title passed on could really resonate with audiences. So, that's our first batch of anti-heroes, from mercenaries and monster hunters to mystics and flaming skull vigilantes. These characters are packed with potential to shake up the MCU in the best way possible. And with the franchise diving into darker, more complex territory, there's no better time for these anti-heroes to take the spotlight. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.